Imagine this: Maya, a marketing professional in downtown Chicago, settles into her seat on the crowded L train for her morning commute. The familiar rhythm of the rails provides a moment of peace before her busy day begins. She pulls out her phone to check messages, expecting the usual work updates and friendly texts. Instead, she's hit with a scathing email from a difficult colleague, words that feel like ice water thrown on her face. The criticism is harsh, personal, and completely unexpected. In an instant, her peaceful morning transforms into a storm of negative emotions. Sound familiar? We've all experienced that jarring moment when someone else's toxicity crashes into our day like an unwelcome intruder. It's remarkable how quickly a single negative interaction can hijack our entire emotional state. As Marcus Aurelius wisely observed in his meditations, when another person blames you or hates you, or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside, and see what sort of people they are. You will realize that there is no need to be racked with anxiety that they should hold any particular opinion about you. This ancient wisdom speaks directly to our modern predicament. That harsh email Maya received says far more about her colleague's internal struggles, insecurities, and character than it does about Maya herself. Yet our natural tendency is to internalize these attacks, allowing them to stain our self-perception like spilled coffee on a white shirt, persistent, visible, and seemingly impossible to wash out. But here's where your true power lies, in recognizing that these moments of confrontation are actually opportunities for growth. Every toxic encounter is a test of your inner fortress, a chance to practice the ancient art of Stoicism in the modern world. The Stoics understood that we cannot control what others say or do, but we have absolute sovereignty over our responses. This is your invitation to embark on a transformative journey, one that will equip you with 11 powerful strategies rooted in Stoic philosophy. These aren't mere theoretical concepts, they're practical tools forged in the fires of real-world experience and tested by centuries of human struggle. From the bustling streets of New York to the tech corridors of Silicon Valley, from the hospitals of Miami to the classrooms of Detroit, these principles work wherever toxic people threaten your peace. Today, we'll explore how to build an unshakable inner citadel that no external force can breach. You'll learn to transform poison into medicine, obstacles into opportunities, and conflicts into chances for character development. This isn't about becoming cold or indifferent, it's about developing the wisdom to engage with life's challenges from a position of strength rather than reactivity. The ancient Stoics faced their own versions of toxic people, corrupt politicians, false friends, and hostile critics. Their wisdom, refined through centuries of practice, offers us a roadmap for navigating our contemporary challenges with grace, dignity, and unshakable inner peace. 1. The discipline of perception, knowing thyself in the face of toxicity. David, a software engineer in Silicon Valley, dreaded Monday morning team meetings. His project manager, Richard, had a talent for turning productive discussions into emotional battlefields. Richard would single out team members, criticize their work publicly, and create an atmosphere thick with tension, like smoke filling a room, making it impossible to see clearly or breathe easily. For months, David found himself leaving these meetings angry, frustrated, and questioning his own competence. Everything changed when David's mentor, an experienced tech lead named Sarah, shared a crucial insight. The real skill isn't in fighting every battle that comes your way, it's in knowing when to dodge. She compared it to martial arts, where masters understand that the most powerful move is often the one not made. When Richard attacks your work, Sarah explained, imagine yourself executing a perfect sidestep. You don't absorb the blow because you're aware of your own boundaries and you respect them enough not to let anyone cross them. This is the essence of the Stoic discipline of perception, the foundational practice of self-awareness that transforms how we experience toxic encounters. As Epictetus taught his students, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The ancient philosopher understood that our suffering comes not from external events themselves, but from our judgments about those events. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his personal journal that became the Meditations, reflected, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This wasn't mere philosophical theory for the Roman emperor. He was surrounded by political enemies, backstabbing senators, and constant threats to his authority. Yet he maintained his inner peace by developing an unshakable awareness of his own responses. The practice begins with two simple but profound questions that David learned to ask himself whenever Richard's negativity struck. Why does this bother me, and what can I learn from this? These aren't questions designed to excuse toxic behavior or blame yourself for others' actions. Instead, they're tools for reinforcing your mental fortitude and understanding your own emotional landscape. When David asked, "Why does this bother me?" he discovered that Richard's public criticism triggered his deep-seated fear of professional failure, a fear rooted in childhood experiences of harsh judgment. This awareness didn't eliminate the discomfort, but it gave David power over it. He could recognize the fear without being controlled by it. The second question, "What can I learn from this?" transformed David's relationship with these difficult encounters entirely. Instead of seeing Richard's behavior as pure antagonism, David began viewing it as valuable data about human psychology, workplace dynamics, and his own growth edges. He learned to identify the warning signs of Richard's mood swings, developed strategies for presenting ideas in ways that minimized conflict, and most importantly, strengthened his own emotional resilience. Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher and advisor to emperors, wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Each toxic encounter, when approached with self-awareness, becomes the end of your old reactive patterns and the beginning of a more conscious way of being. This process isn't about building walls around your heart or becoming emotionally numb. As the Stoics understood, we're not aiming for indifference, but for what they called ataraxia, a state of serene calmness that comes from understanding what's truly within our control. You're constructing what Marcus Aurelius called an inner citadel, not from arrogance or superiority, but from a place of strength and self-respect. The daily practice looks like this. When you encounter someone whose energy feels toxic, pause before reacting. Take a mental step back and observe your own response. Notice the physical sensations, the tightness in your chest, the heat in your face, the tension in your shoulders. These are your early warning systems alerting you that it's time to engage your Stoic training. Remember, this path isn't free of obstacles. There will be days when it feels easier to simply react, to throw back what was thrown at you. But as David discovered, that's a hollow victory that betrays who you're becoming. Each time you choose to respond rather than react, you're not taking the easy path, you're taking the right one for your character development. The ancient Stoics believed that wisdom comes through practice, not theory. Start small. The next time someone's negativity threatens to derail your day, remember David's story. Execute that perfect sidestep. Ask yourself those two crucial questions. And watch as your awareness transforms not just how you handle toxic people, but how you navigate every challenge life presents. 2. The virtue of clemency, forgiving without forgetting wisdom. Carmen, a dedicated nurse in Miami's busiest hospital, faced a daily challenge that tested her patience and compassion. Dr. Martinez, a senior physician, had a reputation for explosive outbursts, public humiliation of staff, and creating a toxic atmosphere that affected everyone's ability to provide quality patient care. His harsh words and condescending attitude had driven several good nurses to transfer to other departments. Carmen found herself dreading shifts when Dr. Martinez was on duty, carrying the weight of his negativity long after their interactions ended. The turning point came when Carmen's grandmother, a woman who had survived decades of hardship with remarkable grace, shared a piece of wisdom that would transform Carmen's approach to difficult relationships. "Mija," she said, "forgiveness isn't about letting people off the hook, it's about freeing yourself from the prison of resentment. But remember, you can forgive someone and still protect yourself from future harm." This perfectly captures the Stoic virtue of clemency, the sophisticated balance between forgiveness and wisdom that the ancient philosophers practiced. As Seneca wrote in his essay on clemency, it is equally faulty to trust everyone and to trust no one. The Stoics understood that forgiveness isn't naive acceptance of harmful behavior, but rather a strategic choice to liberate ourselves from the corrosive effects of anger and resentment. Marcus Aurelius, despite facing constant betrayals and political machinations, wrote, "Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions." This wasn't blind optimism, it was a deliberate practice of finding humanity even in difficult people, not to excuse their behavior, but to maintain his own inner peace and moral clarity. Carmen began implementing what she called her dual fuel system. Forgiveness became her primary fuel, the energy source that allowed her to approach each shift with a clean slate, unburdened by yesterday's conflicts. She learned to see Dr. Martinez's behavior as a reflection of his own stress, insecurity, and perhaps past trauma rather than a personal attack on her worth as a professional. But Carmen's wisdom lay in her navigation system. Her memory served as a sophisticated GPS that helped her avoid unnecessary turbulence while still fulfilling her duties. She began documenting patterns in Dr. Martinez's behavior, noting that his worst outbursts typically occurred during high-stress situations, after long surgeries, or when he was dealing with difficult family members. This wasn't about building a case against him, but about developing the situational awareness that allowed her to prepare mentally and emotionally for challenging interactions. Epictetus, who himself endured slavery and physical abuse, taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He understood that holding on to resentment is like grasping hot coals with the intent of throwing them at someone else. You're the one who gets burned. Carmen discovered this truth firsthand when she realized that her anger toward Dr. Martinez was affecting her relationships with patients, her sleep quality, and her overall job satisfaction. The practice of clemency requires what the Stoics called prosoke, continuous attention to our own moral development. Carmen developed a three-step process that she used after every difficult encounter with Dr. Martinez. First, she would acknowledge her immediate emotional response without judgment. "I feel angry and disrespected," she would tell herself, validating her human reaction while not being controlled by it. Second, she would consciously choose forgiveness, not as a gift to Dr. Martinez, but as a gift to herself. "I release this anger because carrying it hurts me more than it hurts him," became her internal mantra. Third, she would update her mental map of his behavioral patterns, adding new data points that would help her navigate future interactions more skillfully. This wasn't about holding grudges, it was about learning from experience. Seneca wisely observed, "The willing, destiny guides them, the unwilling, destiny drags them." Carmen chose to be willing, to actively participate in her own liberation from the toxic effects of others' behavior. She discovered that forgiveness isn't a one-time decision but a daily practice, like physical exercise that strengthens your emotional resilience over time. The transformation was remarkable. Carmen found herself less reactive to Dr. Martinez's outbursts, more creative in finding ways to communicate effectively with him, and surprisingly more compassionate toward his obvious struggles. Her colleagues began asking for her advice on handling difficult physicians, and she realized that her practice of clemency had made her a more effective nurse and a stronger person. The ancient Stoics understood that forgiveness paired with wisdom creates a powerful combination. You maintain your humanity while protecting your well-being. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Carmen's story demonstrates that true strength lies not in hardening our hearts, but in keeping them open while maintaining healthy boundaries. 3. The Citadel of the Mind, Unshakable Emotional Fortitude. Robert, a high school teacher in Detroit's inner city, faced what felt like an impossible challenge every day. Between aggressive parents questioning his competence during heated conferences, disruptive students testing his authority, and administrators pressuring him to meet unrealistic standards, his classroom often felt like the center of a hurricane. The constant chaos was taking its toll. Sleepless nights, stress eating, and a growing sense that he was losing control of his professional life. Everything changed when Robert discovered the Stoic concept of the inner citadel during a particularly difficult week. After a parent screamed at him for 20 minutes about their child's failing grade, followed by a student throwing a desk in frustration, Robert found himself questioning whether he was cut out for teaching. That evening, he stumbled across Marcus Aurelius's Meditations and read, "Confine yourself to the present." The Roman emperor, who faced barbarian invasions and political conspiracies, understood something profound about maintaining inner peace amid external chaos. The Stoic citadel of the mind isn't about building walls to keep the world out. It's about creating an unshakable center of calm that remains untouched regardless of external circumstances. As Epictetus taught, you are not your body and hairstyle, but your capacity for choosing well. If your choices are beautiful, so too will you be. Robert began to understand that his emotional stability wasn't dependent on his students' behavior or parents' approval, but on his own responses to these challenges. Seneca, writing to his friend Lucilius, explained, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." For Robert, this meant recognizing that each difficult interaction was an opportunity to strengthen his inner fortress rather than evidence of his failure as an educator. He developed what he called his eye of the hurricane technique, a mental practice that allowed him to find calm in the center of chaos. When Mrs. Johnson stormed into his classroom demanding to know why her son received a C+ on his essay, Robert used to feel his heart racing, his palms sweating, and his voice becoming defensive. Now, he practiced what Marcus Aurelius called the view from above, mentally stepping back to observe the situation as if watching it unfold from a higher perspective. He could see Mrs. Johnson's frustration as a mother worried about her child's future, his own natural desire to defend his professional judgment, and the larger context of educational pressure affecting everyone involved. This perspective shift didn't make the conversation easy, but it made it manageable. Robert learned to respond from a place of rational calmness rather than emotional reactivity. "I understand your concern about Michael's grade," he would say, his voice steady and compassionate. "Let's look at the rubric together and discuss specific ways he can improve his writing." The interaction remained challenging, but Robert's inner peace remained intact. The practice of mindfulness became Robert's daily training regimen for emotional fortitude. Before each class, he would spend 2 minutes in what he called fortress meditation, sitting quietly, focusing on his breath, and mentally reinforcing his inner citadel. He would remind himself of Epictetus's teaching, It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. During particularly chaotic moments, like when a student disrupted class or a colleague criticized his teaching methods, Robert learned to create what he called pause points. Instead of immediately reacting, he would take a deep breath and ask himself, what would Marcus Aurelius do in this situation? This simple question helped him access his Stoic training and respond with wisdom rather than impulse. The transformation was remarkable. Robert's students began commenting on his chill demeanor, noting that he seemed unflappable even during the most stressful situations. Parents found him easier to talk to, and his administrators praised his classroom management skills. But the real victory was internal. Robert had learned to maintain his peace regardless of external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Robert discovered that this power wasn't theoretical but intensely practical. When 15-year-old Marcus threw his textbook across the room in frustration, Robert didn't take it personally. Instead, he saw a young person struggling with challenges beyond the classroom and responded with patience and understanding. The Stoic Citadel isn't built overnight. It requires daily practice and constant reinforcement. Robert learned that emotional fortitude is like physical fitness. It must be maintained through regular exercise. Each difficult interaction became a workout for his inner strength. Each challenge an opportunity to prove that his peace was truly unshakable. As Seneca wisely observed, "The mind that is anxious about future misfortunes is miserable." Robert stopped anticipating the next crisis and started focusing on responding skillfully to whatever arose. His classroom became a place of learning not just for his students, but for himself, a daily dojo where he practiced the ancient art of maintaining inner peace amid external chaos. 4. The art of selective association, guarding your inner sanctuary. Jennifer, a corporate attorney in Manhattan, prided herself on being a team player. She attended every office happy hour, participated in all group projects, and kept her door open to anyone who needed help. But after 2 years at the prestigious firm, she felt emotionally drained and professionally scattered. Her colleague Marcus constantly complained about their workload while contributing little. Sarah from HR had a habit of turning every conversation into office gossip. And her supervisor Tom seemed to delight in creating unnecessary drama during team meetings. Jennifer's wake-up call came during a particularly exhausting week when she realized she was spending more mental energy managing other people's emotions than focusing on her own legal work. She felt like an artist whose canvas was being splattered with random paint by everyone who walked by. The final masterpiece bore no resemblance to her original vision for her career or her day. This realization led Jennifer to discover the Stoic principle of selective association, beautifully articulated by Seneca. Choose your companions carefully, for you will become like them. The Roman philosopher understood that our mental and emotional energy is a finite resource, as precious as water in a desert. Every interaction we engage in is like giving away a portion of that vital resource. The question becomes, are we investing it wisely? Marcus Aurelius, despite his position requiring him to interact with countless people daily, wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." Jennifer began to see herself as that headland, solid, grounded, and selective about which waves she allowed to crash against her shores. The ancient Stoics weren't antisocial hermits, they were strategic about their relationships. Epictetus taught, keep company with those who are likely to improve you. This doesn't mean abandoning people who are struggling, but rather being intentional about where you invest your emotional energy and from whom you seek counsel and companionship. Jennifer developed what she called her energy portfolio approach to workplace relationships. Just as she would never invest all her money in volatile stocks, she realized she shouldn't invest all her emotional energy in draining relationships. She began categorizing her interactions into 3 types: energy-giving, colleagues who inspired and supported her; energy-neutral, professional relationships that neither drained nor energized her; and energy-draining, people who consistently left her feeling depleted. This wasn't about being cold or calculating, it was about being wise. As Seneca observed, it is equally faulty to trust everyone and to trust no one. Jennifer learned to engage with energy-draining colleagues professionally and compassionately, but she stopped volunteering for projects with Marcus, politely redirected Sarah's gossip sessions, and prepared mentally before meetings with Tom. The transformation required what the Stoics called prosoke, continuous mindful attention to her choices. When Marcus approached her desk with his daily litany of complaints, Jennifer would listen briefly, offer a supportive comment, and then redirect the conversation. "I understand your frustration, Marcus. I need to focus on this brief right now, but I hope your day improves." This wasn't rude, it was a boundary that protected her mental space while maintaining professional courtesy. Jennifer discovered that setting boundaries wasn't an act of aggression but of self-respect. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." She learned to ask herself, is this conversation helping me be the lawyer I want to be? Is this interaction aligned with my values and goals? These questions helped her distinguish between meaningful professional relationships and energy-draining distractions. The practice extended beyond avoiding negative people to actively cultivating positive relationships. Jennifer began seeking out colleagues who shared her commitment to excellence, who challenged her thinking, and who supported her professional growth. She started having lunch with Patricia, a senior partner known for her wisdom and integrity, and joined a professional development group with attorneys who inspired her. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Jennifer's journey towards selective association meant ending her pattern of saying yes to every social invitation and beginning a more intentional approach to relationship building. She learned that protecting her inner sanctuary wasn't selfish, it was essential for maintaining the energy and focus needed to serve her clients effectively. The results were remarkable. Jennifer's work quality improved dramatically when she wasn't constantly managing other people's emotional crises. Her stress levels decreased, her job satisfaction increased, and she found herself naturally attracting more positive relationships. Colleagues began seeking her out for her calm presence and thoughtful insights. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Jennifer's practice of selective association wasn't about punishing difficult people, it was about refusing to let their dysfunction define her experience. She learned that guarding her inner sanctuary wasn't about building walls but about choosing which gates to open and when. The ancient wisdom remains relevant. Your peace of mind is not up for negotiation, and your energy deserves to be invested where it can flourish and grow. 5. The philosophy of vital force, mastering your energetic economy. Marcus, a paramedic working 12-hour shifts in Los Angeles' busiest emergency response district, understood the concept of energy management better than most people. His smartphone needed careful battery management to last through grueling shifts, close unnecessary apps, dim the screen, turn off location services for non-essential functions. But it took him 3 years on the job to realize that his emotional and mental energy required the same strategic approach. The breaking point came during a particularly brutal week when Marcus dealt with a combative patient who spit in his face, a hospital administrator who blamed him for a delayed response time beyond his control, and a partner who spent entire shifts complaining about everything from the weather to their equipment. By Friday, Marcus felt completely drained, not just physically tired, but emotionally depleted in a way that sleep couldn't fix. This crisis led Marcus to discover the Stoic philosophy of vital force, a concept that Marcus Aurelius explored extensively in his meditations. The Roman emperor wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being." This wasn't about forcing yourself through exhaustion, but about understanding that our energy is a sacred resource that must be directed toward what truly matters. Seneca, writing about the economy of attention, observed, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Marcus began to see that his energy crisis wasn't about the demands of his job, it was about how he was managing his responses to those demands. Like a smartphone running too many background apps, he was allowing energy-draining interactions to consume his vital force without conscious choice. The Stoics understood that we possess what they called pneuma, a vital force or life energy that could be either scattered carelessly or directed purposefully. Epictetus taught, wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants. Marcus realized this principle applied to energy as well. True energetic wealth came not from having unlimited reserves, but from being selective about where he invested his emotional resources. Marcus developed what he called his energy audit system, inspired by the Stoic practice of evening reflection. Each night, he would review his shift and categorize his interactions, which encounters had energized him, which had drained him unnecessarily, which had been neutral. He discovered patterns that surprised him. Dealing with genuine medical emergencies, even traumatic ones, rarely left him feeling depleted. These situations called forth his skills, purpose, and compassion. They were energy-giving because they aligned with his deepest values. But arguing with bureaucrats about paperwork, listening to his partner's endless complaints, or taking personally the verbal abuse from stressed family members, these interactions were pure energy drains that served no constructive purpose. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Marcus the paramedic learned to apply this wisdom practically. When his partner began his daily complaints, Marcus would listen briefly, offer empathy, and then redirect, "That sounds frustrating, Dave. I'm going to focus on checking our equipment now." This wasn't dismissive, it was protective of his vital force. The transformation required what the Stoics called prosoc, continuous mindful attention to his energy choices. Marcus began treating his emotional energy like a precious fuel that needed to be allocated strategically. He learned to ask himself, is this interaction aligned with my purpose as a paramedic? Will engaging deeply here help me serve others better, or will it deplete me unnecessarily? This didn't mean becoming cold or uncaring. Marcus discovered that by protecting his energy from unnecessary drains, he had more to give when it truly mattered. He became more present with patients, more supportive of genuinely struggling colleagues, and more effective in crisis situations. His supervisor noticed the change, commenting that Marcus seemed to have developed an unusual resilience that made him invaluable during high-stress calls. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Marcus's journey toward energetic mastery meant ending his pattern of emotional reactivity and beginning a more conscious relationship with his vital force. He learned that flexibility, like a tree bending in the wind, wasn't about being weak but about being strategically responsive. The practice extended beyond work. Marcus began applying the same principles to his personal relationships, social media consumption, and even his entertainment choices. He asked himself, does this activity restore my energy or deplete it? Am I choosing this consciously or just reacting habitually? The results were profound. Marcus found himself less exhausted after difficult shifts, more resilient during challenging periods, and more capable of genuine compassion when it was needed most. He had learned what the ancient Stoics knew, that mastering your vital force isn't about having unlimited energy, it's about investing the energy you have in alignment with your deepest values and highest purposes. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Marcus discovered that this included how he chose to spend his most precious resource, his life energy itself. 6. The discipline of desire, unwavering focus on what matters. Alicia stood in her tiny Portland apartment kitchen at 2 a.m., perfecting a butternut squash risotto recipe that had taken her months to develop. Her dream of opening a farm-to-table restaurant felt both tantalizingly close and impossibly distant. Earlier that evening, her family dinner had turned into another intervention session. Her mother worried about her financial stability, her father questioned why she'd left her perfectly good marketing job, and her sister suggested she was being unrealistic about the restaurant industry's challenges. The criticism stung because it came from people who loved her. But Alicia was learning something profound about the Stoic discipline of desire, the practice of maintaining unwavering focus on what truly matters while external voices try to redirect your path. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, confine yourself to the present. For Alicia, this meant confining herself to the work of becoming the chef and restaurateur she knew she could be. Epictetus, who understood the power of focused intention, taught, wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants. Alicia discovered that this principle applied to attention as well as material goods. True wealth of focus came not from pursuing multiple goals simultaneously, but from directing her energy toward the one thing that aligned with her deepest values and calling. The ancient Stoics faced similar challenges. Seneca, despite his wealth and political position, constantly dealt with critics who questioned his philosophical pursuits. He wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Alicia realized that pursuing her restaurant dream meant ending her need for universal approval and beginning a more authentic relationship with her own ambitions. Alicia developed what she called her recipe for focus, a systematic approach to maintaining her vision despite external pressure. First, she created what Marcus Aurelius might have called a view from above perspective on her situation. She wrote down her core values: creativity, sustainability, community building, and culinary excellence. Then she evaluated every piece of feedback against these values rather than against her family's fears. When her father expressed concern about her financial future, Alicia learned to hear the love behind the worry while maintaining clarity about her path. "I understand your concern, Dad," she would say. "I'm being very careful with my finances and building this business step by step." She refused to engage in lengthy debates about the restaurant industry's failure rates or the security of corporate jobs. As Seneca observed, it is equally faulty to trust everyone and to trust no one. Alicia learned to trust her own judgment while remaining open to constructive feedback. The discipline of desire required what the Stoics called prosoche, continuous attention to what deserved her mental energy. Instead of spending hours trying to convince skeptical family members, Alicia redirected that energy into perfecting her craft. She spent mornings at the local farmers market, building relationships with organic producers. She used afternoons to experiment with seasonal recipes and evenings to study successful restaurant business models. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Alicia discovered that this power included the ability to choose which opinions deserved her consideration. She began distinguishing between feedback from people with relevant expertise, like the restaurant owner who mentored her or the chef who taught her advanced techniques, and concerns from well-meaning but inexperienced family members. This wasn't about becoming arrogant or dismissive. Alicia learned to practice what Epictetus called the discipline of desire, wanting what happens rather than demanding that reality conform to others' expectations. When her sister questioned her decision to focus on sustainable ingredients, Alicia didn't argue. Instead, she invited her sister to visit a local organic farm, sharing her passion through experience rather than debate. The transformation was remarkable. As Alicia stopped defending her choices and started demonstrating them, her family's resistance began to soften. Her mother started sharing articles about successful female restaurateurs. Her father offered to help with the business plan. Her sister became her most enthusiastic taste tester for new recipes. Seneca wrote, "The willing, destiny guides them, the unwilling, destiny drags them." Alicia chose to be willing to embrace the uncertainty and challenges of entrepreneurship while maintaining unwavering focus on her vision. She learned that the discipline of desire wasn't about suppressing wants, but about clarifying which desires aligned with her authentic self and which were merely responses to external pressure. 6 months later, when Alicia signed the lease for her restaurant space, she realized that her family's initial skepticism had actually strengthened her resolve. By learning to maintain focus despite external doubt, she had developed the mental resilience that would serve her well as a business owner. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Alicia's journey taught her that obstacles to our dreams often become the very experiences that prepare us to achieve them if we maintain disciplined focus on what truly matters. 7. The wisdom of counsel seeking guidance without surrendering agency. Thomas, a social worker in Philadelphia, often felt overwhelmed by the complexity of his job. Each day presented a new set of challenges. From navigating bureaucratic red tape to managing the emotional upheaval of his clients, the pressures could be suffocating. He found himself caught in a cycle of stress and isolation, feeling like he was fighting his battles alone. The tipping point came when he missed a crucial deadline because he was too proud to ask for help, resulting in a backlash that could have been avoided with a simple conversation. It was during this difficult time that Thomas remembered a piece of wisdom from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This quote resonated deeply with him, urging him to reconsider his approach to seeking guidance and support. He realized that one of the key aspects of the Stoic tradition is understanding our limitations and recognizing that wisdom often comes from collective experience rather than individual effort. The Stoics taught that while we cannot control everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond and who we choose to engage with. Marcus Aurelius emphasized the importance of surrounding ourselves with wise companions. Keep company with those who are likely to improve you. Thomas began to reflect on this and realized he had been neglecting the valuable relationships around him. Friends, mentors, and colleagues who could provide insight and support. Determined to change, Thomas initiated a weekly coffee meeting with his colleagues, inviting them to share their experiences and strategies for dealing with the emotional toll of their work. This simple act of reaching out opened the floodgates to a wealth of collective wisdom. One colleague shared a technique for managing high-stress situations by using mindfulness exercises, while another provided resources for navigating the bureaucratic challenges they all faced. In these gatherings, Thomas found not only camaraderie but also a renewed sense of purpose. He learned that seeking guidance wasn't a sign of weakness, but rather an affirmation of his commitment to personal and professional growth. This shift in perspective aligned perfectly with Seneca's assertion that the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. As the weeks went by, Thomas became more comfortable asking for help. He began to engage with his supervisor, a seasoned social worker with decades of experience, who had previously seemed intimidating. Instead of fearing judgment, Thomas learned to approach her with specific questions. "I'm facing a challenge with a client who is resistant to change. How have you navigated similar situations?" This approach replaced his anxiety with actionable advice and reassurance. Moreover, he discovered that the act of seeking guidance not only benefited him, but also created a culture of support within his team. His colleagues felt more comfortable sharing their struggles, knowing that vulnerability could lead to collective strength. In a moment of reflection, Thomas recalled the words of Marcus Aurelius: "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." By changing his thought patterns about seeking assistance, he profoundly impacted his well-being and work environment. The ancient Stoics emphasized the importance of mentorship and learning from the experiences of others. Epictetus advised, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Thomas realized that embracing his own ignorance and being open to learning from others was a powerful step toward growth. This humility allowed him to absorb knowledge from various sources, enriching his practice and enhancing his effectiveness as a social worker. One of the most significant lessons Thomas learned was the importance of gratitude. He began to express appreciation for his colleagues' insights, fostering a sense of community and collaboration. A simple thank you could change the dynamics of their interactions, making them more uplifting and supportive. As Seneca wisely noted, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." As Thomas continued to cultivate his network of support, he became more adept at maintaining his emotional resilience. He learned to recognize when he was nearing burnout and sought counsel from trusted colleagues before reaching a breaking point. This proactive approach not only improved his performance, but also allowed him to better serve his clients, as he was more present and engaged. Incorporating the wisdom of counsel into his life required Thomas to practice the Stoic principle of prosoke, which emphasizes continuous awareness of one's environment and relationships. He became adept at discerning which voices to listen to and which to ignore, based on their alignment with his values and goals. By the end of the year, Thomas found himself transformed. He was no longer the overwhelmed social worker struggling in isolation. He had become a resourceful professional who understood the power of community. He learned that seeking guidance is not about surrendering agency, but rather about enhancing one's ability to navigate life's complexities with wisdom and clarity. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Thomas discovered that in seeking counsel, he was not relinquishing control, but rather gaining new tools to wield in his professional journey. 8. The governance of inner discourse, mastering the voice within. Sandra, a financial advisor in Boston, often found herself battling a fierce internal critic. Each day in the office, she worked hard to present clients with tailored financial strategies, but after every meeting, her mind would flood with self-doubt. Did I say the right thing? What if I missed an important detail? Or they probably think I'm unqualified. These thoughts would echo in her mind long after the workday ended, robbing her of peace and confidence. One particularly challenging day, after a difficult client interaction, Sandra stumbled upon a quote by Marcus Aurelius: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The words resonated deeply within her, igniting a desire to reclaim her mental sovereignty. She realized that her inner discourse was not merely a byproduct of her interactions, but a powerful tool that could shape her confidence and effectiveness if properly governed. The ancient Stoics understood that our thoughts influence our actions and emotions profoundly. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Sandra began to see her self-talk as a choice she could consciously direct rather than a passive reflection of her experiences. This realization started her on a journey toward mastering her internal narrative. To take control of her thoughts, Sandra implemented a three-step process she called mindful reflection. First, she acknowledged her thoughts without judgment. Instead of immediately berating herself for feeling insecure, she practiced saying, "I noticed that I'm feeling anxious about my client's perception of me." This simple act of acknowledgement shifted her perspective, allowing her to separate her identity from her emotions. As Marcus Aurelius noted, the things you think about determine the quality of your mind. In the second step, Sandra challenged the validity of her negative thoughts. She began asking herself critical questions. Is there evidence that supports this fear? Have my clients expressed dissatisfaction previously? What would I tell a colleague in my position? This approach helped her recognize that her fears were often exaggerated and unfounded. By applying rational analysis, she could replace damaging self-talk with constructive affirmations grounded in her actual performance and capabilities. Finally, the third step involved replacing negative thoughts with empowering affirmations. Sandra developed a mantra based on her strengths and achievements. "I am knowledgeable, prepared, and capable of providing valuable advice to my clients." Whenever self-doubt crept in, she would repeat this affirmation to herself, reinforcing her confidence and redirecting her focus toward her skills and successes. The power of this inner governance became evident as Sandra practiced her mindful reflection process consistently. Over time, she noticed a significant shift in her self-perception. The internal critic that once loomed large began to shrink as she cultivated a more supportive inner voice. She recalled Epictetus's wisdom: "He who laughs at himself never runs out of things to laugh at." Learning to laugh at her own mistakes and imperfections became a source of strength rather than shame. To further bolster her inner discourse, Sandra began to keep a journal where she documented her thoughts and reflections after each client meeting. This practice allowed her to identify recurring themes in her self-talk and track her progress over time. By reviewing her entries, she could see how her mindset had shifted from one of fear and insecurity to one of empowerment and confidence. One day, during a particularly tough client meeting where she faced tough questions about market volatility, Sandra felt the familiar pang of anxiety rising within her. But this time, she was prepared. She employed her mindful reflection process on the spot, acknowledging her anxiety, challenging her fears by recalling her extensive preparation, and affirming her expertise. Instead of becoming paralyzed by self-doubt, she navigated the conversation with clarity and poise, impressing her clients with her knowledge and professionalism. The ancient Stoics emphasized the importance of self-mastery as a pathway to true freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Sandra learned that by governing her inner discourse, she could control how external events affected her. The real strength lay in her ability to choose her thoughts deliberately, transforming them from potential sources of anxiety into tools for empowerment. Over time, Sandra's confidence grew and her performance improved. She became known among her colleagues for her calm demeanor, even in high-pressure situations. She began to mentor new advisors, sharing her journey of mastering the voice within. In doing so, she reinforced her own learning while helping others navigate their self-doubts. As she continued her practice, Sandra reflected on how far she had come. The once dominant voice of criticism had been replaced with one of encouragement and resilience. She embodied the Stoic principle that our thoughts shape our reality. By mastering her inner discourse, Sandra had taken charge of her professional narrative, paving the way for continued growth and success. In the words of Seneca, the mind that is anxious about future misfortunes is miserable. Sandra learned that by taking control of her thoughts, she could shape her future, transforming anxiety into confidence and self-doubt into self-empowerment. 9. The practice of practical wisdom, transforming obstacles into opportunities. When faced with a particularly challenging scenario, Kevin, a project manager at a tech startup in Seattle, found himself at a crossroads. His team was behind schedule on a critical product launch, and tensions were running high. The pressure from upper management was palpable, and his normally collaborative team was fracturing under stress. It seemed like every obstacle was an insurmountable barrier, and Kevin felt stuck in a cycle of frustration. One afternoon, after a heated meeting, Kevin took a deep breath and recalled the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, who wrote in his Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This powerful insight sparked a realization in Kevin. Rather than seeing the obstacles as roadblocks, he could view them as opportunities for growth and innovation. Inspired by this Stoic principle, Kevin decided to shift his approach. He called a team meeting, not to assign blame, but to foster a collaborative atmosphere for problem solving. "I know we're under pressure, but I want us to focus on what we can do to turn this situation around," he stated, inviting everyone to share their perspectives on the challenges they faced. This was a pivotal moment. Instead of hiding from the obstacles, Kevin encouraged his team to face them head-on. As Epictetus famously taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Kevin understood that while they couldn't control the external pressures from management or the timeline, they could control their responses and strategies for moving forward. The team brainstormed together, identifying the main obstacles: unclear project goals, overlapping responsibilities, and a lack of effective communication. Instead of allowing frustration to dominate, they began to see these challenges as opportunities to streamline their processes and improve collaboration. Kevin facilitated an open dialogue, encouraging each team member to voice their ideas without fear of judgment. This collaborative effort not only built camaraderie but also sparked creativity. One team member suggested implementing a daily stand-up meeting to improve communication, while another proposed using project management software to clarify responsibilities and deadlines. Kevin encouraged these ideas, recognizing that obstacles often contain the seeds of innovative solutions. As the team began to implement these changes, Kevin reflected on the Stoic concept of phronesis, or practical wisdom. Marcus Aurelius emphasized the importance of applying wisdom to everyday situations. Wisdom is the knowledge of good and evil. For Kevin, this meant recognizing that the chaos surrounding their project could be transformed into a structured approach that allowed their team to thrive. The daily stand-up meetings became an essential part of their workflow. Each morning, they would gather for 15 minutes to discuss priorities, address concerns, and celebrate small wins. This practice not only improved transparency, but also fostered a sense of shared responsibility. The team began to feel more connected and empowered, which in turn reduced anxiety about the looming deadline. In parallel, Kevin started to practice what the Stoics called apeiskeuein, or the habit of reflecting on one's actions and responses throughout the day. At the end of each workday, he would jot down notes about what worked, what didn't, and how he could improve tomorrow. This practice allowed him to learn from each experience, reinforcing the idea that obstacles are not failures but rather stepping stones to greater understanding and capability. The transformation in the team's dynamics was palpable. As they embraced the obstacles as opportunities for growth, their productivity increased. They completed the product ahead of schedule, much to the surprise of upper management. Kevin's leadership had shifted from a reactive stance to one of proactive engagement, embodying the Stoic principle that true resilience comes from embracing challenges rather than avoiding them. As the product launch approached, Kevin felt a newfound sense of confidence in his team. They had become a cohesive unit that thrived under pressure, demonstrating the power of collective wisdom and adaptability. In the words of Seneca, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Each challenge they faced had become an opportunity to build not only a better product but also a stronger, more agile team. On launch day, as the team celebrated their success, Kevin reminded them of the journey they had taken together. Remember, we didn't just overcome obstacles. We transformed them into opportunities that helped us grow. Let's carry this momentum forward into our next project. The cheers and laughter that followed were not just reflections of success, but testaments to the resilience and unity they had developed. Kevin's experience illustrates the essence of Stoic wisdom in action. By reframing obstacles as opportunities for growth, he not only improved his team's performance but also fostered a culture of resilience and collaboration. The Stoics understood that life is full of challenges, but it is our response to those challenges that defines us. As Marcus Aurelius wisely noted, the universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. In the end, Kevin learned that obstacles are not the enemy. They are essential teachers on the path to success. By embracing the Stoic practice of transforming challenges into opportunities, he had not only become a better leader, but had also inspired his team to reach new heights. 10. The virtue of strategic silence, choosing battles with wisdom. Diana, a retail manager in Atlanta, faced daily challenges that tested her patience and leadership skills. Her store was bustling, filled with customers and employees alike, and the pressure to meet sales goals was always high. But what weighed heavily on her were the constant complaints from customers, coupled with the drama among her staff. It was exhausting. Whenever a conflict arose, she felt compelled to dive in, to resolve issues immediately, and to demonstrate her authority. However, after a particularly stressful week filled with customer complaints and staff disagreements, Diana found herself reflecting on the wisdom of the Stoics. She remembered a line from Seneca: "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." This insight prompted her to consider whether her instinct to react to every situation was truly serving her or her team. One afternoon, as tensions escalated between two employees over scheduling conflicts, Diana was tempted to intervene immediately. But instead of jumping into the fray, she paused. She recalled the Stoic principle of strategic silence, understanding that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." This idea resonated with Diana, encouraging her to step back and assess the situation before acting. By choosing to observe rather than react, Diana noticed several key dynamics at play. The conflict between her employees was fueled not just by the scheduling issue, but by underlying frustrations from previous shifts where communication had broken down. Instead of taking sides or forcing a resolution, she allowed her staff to express their concerns openly, facilitating a conversation instead. This strategic silence created a space for her employees to articulate their feelings. They began to realize that their frustrations stemmed from a lack of communication and understanding, rather than from personal grievances. As they talked, solutions began to emerge organically, reinforcing the idea that sometimes allowing people to express themselves is more effective than rushing to impose a resolution. Diana's willingness to remain silent did not mean she was indifferent. Rather, she was exercising a form of leadership grounded in wisdom. She remembered a quote from Epictetus: "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." By stepping back, she created an opportunity for her team to learn from their experiences and develop their own solutions. As the days turned into weeks, Diana found that her practice of strategic silence not only diffused conflicts but also fostered a culture of collaboration within her team. Employees felt empowered to speak up, share their ideas, and work together to resolve issues without her direct intervention. The atmosphere in the store shifted from one of tension to one of mutual respect and support. This approach also had profound effects on her own well-being. Diana learned to manage her stress levels better by not feeling obligated to resolve every issue immediately. She started to ask herself critical questions when faced with conflicts. Is this battle worth my energy? Will engaging in this conversation lead to a constructive outcome? This practice aligned perfectly with Marcus Aurelius's reminder to focus on what is within our control. For example, one day a particularly upset customer approached her, demanding to speak to a manager about a product issue. In the past, Diana would have rushed to appease them, fearing that any delay would escalate the situation. However, she paused and assessed the moment. Instead of jumping in with apologies, she asked, "What specifically is the issue you're facing?" This approach not only calmed the customer but also allowed Diana to gather information to address the problem effectively. As she practiced strategic silence, Diana also began to cultivate mindfulness techniques to manage her reactions. She would take a deep breath before responding to difficult situations, reminding herself of the Stoic principle that it is not the events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those events. This practice of mindfulness helped her remain centered, allowing her to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. The results were remarkable. Diana's store not only met its sales goals, but the team also reported higher job satisfaction. Employees felt more engaged and valued, knowing their voices mattered. The strategic silence had transformed the dynamics of the workplace, making it a more cohesive and productive environment. Incorporating the Stoic practice of strategic silence required Diana to embrace vulnerability. She had to trust that her team could handle challenges without her immediate intervention, and that her silence was a strength rather than a weakness. As Seneca wisely noted, "The wise man is not exposed to the whims of fortune. He is not disturbed by the events of life." By allowing her team to navigate their own conflicts, Diana became a more effective leader, fostering growth and resilience in her workplace. In the end, Diana learned that choosing battles wisely and practicing strategic silence not only improved her leadership skills, but also created a more harmonious work environment. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. By embracing the challenges of leadership with wisdom, she found a path to success that was as much about empowerment as it was about authority. 11. The discernment of authentic character, seeing through false facades. Antonio, a sales director in Phoenix, was no stranger to the complexities of human interactions in the workplace. In a role that required him to build relationships with clients and collaborate with his team, he often encountered people who wore masks of sincerity but harbored ulterior motives. Some colleagues portrayed themselves as friends while subtly undermining others, and clients sometimes seemed more interested in superficial pleasantries than genuine partnerships. One day, after a particularly frustrating meeting with a client who had flattered him with praise but later attempted to manipulate contract terms, Antonio found himself questioning the authenticity of those around him. It was during this moment of reflection that he recalled a fundamental principle from the Stoic philosopher Seneca: the mind is a fortress and the rest is a mere shadow. This idea inspired him to cultivate the discernment necessary to see beyond facades and recognize true character. Antonio knew that the ancient Stoics were masters at reading human behavior. Epictetus taught that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. This wisdom prompted him to become more attentive to the nuances of communication, body language, tone, and the consistency of actions over words. He began to listen more carefully, not just to what people said, but to how they said it and what their actions revealed about their intentions. To enhance his discernment skills, Antonio developed a habit of observing interactions closely. He would take mental notes during meetings, paying attention to the dynamics between colleagues and how they treated one another. He recalled Marcus Aurelius's advice: when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. This acknowledgement helped him approach interactions with realistic expectations, allowing him to remain calm and composed in the face of challenges. One afternoon, during a team meeting, Antonio noticed that Jessica, one of his team members, was unusually quiet. As discussions unfolded, it became clear that she had valuable insights but was hesitant to share them. Drawing on his newfound discernment, Antonio gently encouraged her to contribute, saying, "Jessica, your perspective is important to this discussion. I'd love to hear what you think." This simple gesture not only empowered Jessica but also revealed the contrast between her genuine intent and the more performative behaviors exhibited by others. As he practiced this discernment, Antonio began to identify certain patterns in behavior that indicated authenticity. For example, he learned to appreciate those who showed consistency between their words and actions. He recalled a quote from Marcus Aurelius: "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and you have the power to revoke that at any moment." This insight encouraged him to evaluate the motivations behind people's actions without getting ensnared in their drama. Antonio also recognized the importance of setting boundaries with those who exhibited false cordiality. He recalled an encounter with a colleague, Brian, who often pretended to be supportive while subtly sabotaging others' efforts. When Brian complimented Antonio on a successful presentation but then attempted to take credit for the idea, Antonio decided to address the situation directly. He calmly stated, "I appreciate your feedback, but I want to clarify that the concept originated from our brainstorming sessions, and I believe it's essential to acknowledge everyone's contributions." This approach not only established his boundaries but also sent a clear message to Brian about the importance of accountability. As Epictetus had reminded him, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. By reframing the encounter, Antonio maintained his integrity and demonstrated the value of authenticity in professional relationships. The practice of discernment extended beyond identifying falsehoods. It also involved recognizing and nurturing genuine connections. Antonio made a conscious effort to invest more time in relationships with colleagues who shared his values and demonstrated sincerity. He began to spend lunch breaks with Maria, a fellow director known for her integrity and supportive nature. Their conversations were refreshing and enlightening, and Antonio found himself seeking her advice and insights on various projects. This shift in focus not only enhanced his professional relationships but also enriched his personal life. Antonio began to realize that surrounding himself with authentic individuals brought out the best in him, fostering a culture of mutual respect and collaboration. As Seneca wisely observed, the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. By choosing to engage with those who exhibited authenticity, Antonio embraced the present and cultivated a positive work environment. Over time, Antonio's discernment skills sharpened, enabling him to navigate complex interpersonal dynamics with ease. He learned to trust his intuition while remaining grounded in Stoic principles. As Marcus Aurelius advised, be like the headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and rounded the seething waters are laid to rest. Through this lens of discernment, Antonio became a rock amidst the turbulent waters of workplace politics. In the end, Antonio discovered that the ability to see through false facades is a powerful tool in both professional and personal realms. By practicing discernment, he reinforced his own values and built stronger, more genuine relationships. He embraced the Stoic belief that authenticity is a cornerstone of a fulfilling life, allowing him to navigate challenges with clarity and purpose. As he reflected on his journey, Antonio realized that the Stoic principles of discernment had transformed his approach to relationships, empowering him to cultivate a life marked by authenticity and integrity. Ultimately, he learned that true strength lies not only in recognizing the masks others wear, but also in choosing to engage with those who reveal their true selves. The fortress of inner peace, your Stoic arsenal complete. As we conclude this exploration of Stoic wisdom and its profound applications in our modern lives, it's essential to reflect on the journey we've taken together. From the morning tests of external negativity to the discerning practice of identifying authentic character, we've seen how Stoic principles can empower us to navigate the complexities of contemporary life. These lessons are not just theoretical. They are practical tools we can wield to enhance our emotional resilience and foster meaningful connections. Throughout this journey, we have learned the importance of self-awareness, emotional fortitude, and the art of selective association. We've witnessed how strategic silence can lead to wiser decisions, and how recognizing the authenticity in others allows us to engage more deeply with those who truly uplift us. Each of these Stoic practices serves as a building block in constructing our personal fortress of inner peace, a sanctuary where we can cultivate strength and stability amid the chaos of life. As Marcus Aurelius wisely stated, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Our thoughts and perceptions shape our experiences, and by applying Stoic wisdom, we gain the power to transform obstacles into opportunities." Remember that every challenge we face is not merely a hindrance, but a chance to practice resilience and develop our character. This mindset enables us to approach life with clarity and purpose, making each day an opportunity for growth and self-improvement. In your daily interactions, take a moment to apply these Stoic principles. When faced with negativity, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, how can I respond in a way that aligns with my values? Embrace the practice of mindful reflection, allowing yourself to cultivate a positive inner dialogue. Seek counsel from those who inspire you, and don't hesitate to set boundaries with those who drain your energy. As you continue your journey, remember that the Stoic path is not one of isolation but of connection. Surround yourself with individuals who elevate your spirit and challenge you positively. Engage in thoughtful conversations and foster an environment of mutual respect and support. In doing so, you not only enhance your own life but also contribute to the well-being of those around you. Now, as we part ways, I encourage you to take these teachings to heart. Share them with friends and family, and let the wisdom of the Stoics guide you in your daily life. If you found value in this exploration of Stoic philosophy, please consider subscribing to the Stoic Vivu channel. Your support helps us continue to share these insights with a broader audience. Like and share this content to spread the message of practical Stoicism and empower others to embark on their journeys toward inner peace and resilience. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey through Stoic philosophy. May you carry these lessons with you, building your fortress of inner peace, and continue to find strength in the face of life's challenges. Remember, the power to shape your reality lies within you. Embrace it,